And we are back with the College Tailgaters. My name is Chris America, coming to you from Orlando, Florida, after a weekend escaping this frigid, cold Florida winter. Got an escape to the Bahamas for the weekend, but now I'm back. Joined by me is my man Sean Daly from Illinois. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Chris. Like you said, I'm Sean Daly. You can find me on Twitter at TailgaterSean. And you're in the Bahamas doing a little bit of a marathon. How'd that go?
It was okay. I hated it. After about the 14th mile, I wondered why the hell I signed up for a marathon and what was I thinking. But once you cross that finish line and you get over the pain and you get that first free beer, I was glad I did it. It was a good accomplishment. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But definitely glad I did it. Also, while I was on my marathon run, I noticed there was a bar there called Tailgaters Sports Bar. So you and I are going to have to fly down there one time and do a show live from College Tailgater. Or we'll do College Tailgaters from Tailgaters Sports Bar in the Bahamas.
I guess if you're twisting my arm, I'll go to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you should just bring down one of your planes, fly down and pick me up, and then we'll just fly on over since you're a pilot and all.
Yeah, I think we can make that happen for sure.
How was your weekend?
It was good. I drove 26.2 miles and it was exhausting. Definitely didn't run them. Yeah, not as nice as the Bahamas, but it was a pretty good weekend here in the Midwest.
You guys still staying warm up there with your 30-degree weather, or is it back down in the teens and single digits?
Oh, yeah, in the teens. We got about 6 inches of snow last night into this morning, so it's full-on winter again.
Very nice. Well, it's been about a week since it has been exactly a week since the big national championship game, the Invitational National Championship game, that is.
I was wondering if you're going to correct yourself there.
Yeah, so of course. So you had a week to digest the game. Hell of a game, man. I'm glad I didn't miss out. Very back and forth. It was a tale of two halves. And the biggest shock to me was Nick Saban pulling out Hurts and putting in the flying Hawaiian. Tua. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but Tua came in.
Tagovailoa.
Oh, you got it? Say it one more time. Say it
Tagovailoa.
Dang, you're solid.
You're gonna need to learn it because you're gonna hear it a lot next year.
This is why you're on College Tailgaters, the #1 college podcast in the world.
That's right, #1. But yeah, you're going to hear that name a lot. And just like you said, my first note on this game was a tale of two halves. Georgia looked like they're going to run away with this game early on. They had a 13-0 lead at the half. The momentum kind of went in their favor real early in that game when it's still 0-0. And Bama was lining up for a field goal. And they snapped the ball, kicker made it, but a false start was called before the kick. They backed him up 5, and he missed it. And then he kind of had that look in his eye, which we saw a lot later in the game. But yeah, 13-0 at half, 20-7 after Fromm tossed that 80-yard touchdown pass that I thought for sure was the backbreaker. I didn't think anyone was going to, there wasn't a whole lot of scoring that game up to that point. I didn't think Bama was going to be able to catch him. But he went to the flying Hawaiian, Tua, and yeah, two halves. The game was totally different in that second half.
And it was a very uncharacteristic move by Nick Saban. He normally doesn't make those panic-type calls, but I don't even really consider it a panic-type call after seeing his interview right after the game. He pretty much just said, look, I thought he was the better quarterback, and we went with the better quarterback. Hurts wasn't getting it done, so that's why I made the call. And he didn't stutter. He didn't apologize for it. He had his typical Nick Saban, assured of himself type face. And it worked out in the end. There was a couple of times, though, where I'm tweeting out that I saw no difference between Hurts and Tua. They had very similar play styles. Tua is obviously a lot better of a quarterback as far as throwing the football, but there was a lot of times where he overthrew his wide receivers or held on the ball a little bit too long, where Hurts was more apt to escape the pocket and try to make a play. But again, you can't argue against the player that came in and won the game. So it was a good move by Nick Saban.
It was, and they're both, like you said, they're both dual threat quarterbacks, so they have kind of similar skill sets. Neither of them is like an elite thrower from the quarterback position, but Tua does have a slight edge there. They're different types of runner. Hurts runs more like a running back, where Tua does more on the perimeter. It's still weird to me to see a lefty quarterback. But yeah, the switch at quarterback was it seemed odd at first. Hurts is 25-2 as a starter at Bama. So to pull someone like that, but Tua, we talked about him early in the year. I think I mentioned him on one of our first episodes, just joking that he might be in the Heisman talk because when they were blowing teams out, Tua was getting in games, and he played in 8 games this year before the championship. So it's not like he didn't have any experience coming in. They weren't going to someone who hadn't played all year. But, man, it was the final sequence of that game was just something to behold. So Bama getting the ball back with, I think it was just a little under 3 minutes left. Georgia gets that huge face mask penalty that on defense to set up the field goal for Bama to win it in regulation. Man, that kicker, that poor guy, that was one of the worst shanks I've ever seen in a long time. And I called this shank when I was watching the game. I don't know if you're an avid golfer or not, Chris, but when I go out on the golf course, I take 0 practice swings before I hit the ball. And this guy kicked about 100 balls into the net before going out to make this kick. And it was a horrible, horrible shank job.
Yeah, it was kind of like when you're playing Madden and you just lackadaisically pull the joystick back and then flip it forward, and you accidentally flip it real hard to the left, and the meter thing goes real hard to the left, and you know as soon as that happens, the ball's going straight to Shankville. That's what that kick looked like. Playing Madden video game, and it was just a really bad kick. I knew he was going to miss it because he's a Nick Saban kicker, and that's what Nick Saban kickers do. It's very well documented that Nick Saban, for whatever reason, cannot recruit a kicker, and we've talked about it on this show before. And you got to think, as a Georgia fan, the second you see that miss, you feel like you're predestined to win that game. That even though you gave up the lead and Bama tied it, you still feel really good going into halftime knowing that they missed their opportunity to beat you guys, and now it's all on you to get the game won. And then when you get the huge sack on Tua, I think he dropped back to what, like the 38, 40-yard line, took him straight out of Bama field goal range, which, let's be honest, Bama field goal range is an extra point.
At that point, it was non-existent.
Right. And you really got to feel so good as a Georgia fan. As much as I hate Georgia, I feel bad for Georgia football fans in general, because back in February, they watched a 28-3 lead go away. Then now, just this last week, not even a year later, 11 months later, they have a 20-7 lead erased in the fourth quarter. And total, it was a 48-10 combined score between the Falcons and the Georgia Bulldogs that they had erased in 2 championship games. And the state of Georgia still looking for a championship. So, gotta feel bad for that fan base there.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, their kicker, Rodrigo Blankenship, was absolutely money the whole game. And Fromm took a bad sack. Georgia got the ball first in overtime, and Fromm took a bad sack, and Hot Rod had to bomb a 51-yarder. And then Tua went from being Alabama's GOAT to maybe the GOAT of Alabama on one play. When he took, like you said, the awful sack, he backed him up to the 41. So they're way, way out of field goal range. And the very next play, just throwing that bomb, little inexcusable to get behind the defense like that, but I don't know if they were expecting a 41-yard end zone shot right after he takes a sack. But yeah, what an incredible ending. Amazing. As soon as
he let go of that football, you're like, where is he going? And then you see that there is no safety. The safety is just way too late coming over. And really, it just would have been, the only way that play wouldn't have worked out is if it was a bad throw. And Tua just put it right on the money, and it was game over from there.
Yeah, it was a great throw, great vision to see that as a freshman on the biggest stage. Incredible ending. I mean, the UCF fans who boycotted this game, you missed a great one.
Yeah, definitely. It was a hell of a game, and I was, for one, glad that we watched it together through Twitter, of course. We were tweeting at each other. You kind of got on me when I jokingly said I was watching. What did I say I was watching? Oh, yeah, the Lizzie McGuire movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be a good game. I thought it was going to be a lot lower scoring, so I was happy to see them pick it up a little bit in the second half. So Alabama claims their championship. UCF has claimed a championship. But I do think the one thing we can all agree on, there's no disputing the championship of our Bowl Mania, which is J. our BSR insider.
Yeah, so it was J. He's at Tunes352. I still got to reach out to him and see if he wants to come onto the show. Maybe we'll get it.
Brag a little bit.
Yeah, since we kind of weren't even sure if we were going to do a show today since I was out of town and you were on call at work. So we're glad we got to get on the show. So we'll have to get him. Again, that's at Tunes352. Shout out to you, man. Congratulations. He was pretty much the leader most of the way. Him and our boys over at Podcast BSR, Clayton Windsor, they were trading back and forth for the lead, and then he ended up opening up with a 2-game win streak over him and Two-Man Band Podcast. So Big Rick over there. So
had a great
it was
run.
it was a good group of guys and girls that we had in there that made it really exciting.
Yeah, so like you said, we got J. Tunes there was first place. He had 26 of the bowl games right. That's in the 98th percentile of all of ESPN. 2 games behind them, Two-Man Band and BSR. I was 1 game off their pace at 23 wins. And then we got you at 21 wins. So everyone did pretty well. I think we acquitted ourselves pretty good. You and I both started horrendously in this. The first week was not kind to either of us. So I was glad we both bounced back and didn't look like complete idiots. It was tight the whole way through.
Yep, we got to give it to Jen and Jody as well. They came in with 23 wins and 22 wins.
Yep.
And it was a solid group. I always took 1 step forward and 3 steps backwards. I picked Navy to win, and nobody else did, except for I think maybe you did. And they won the game, and I'm like, okay, I'm back in it. I'm going to catch up to the pace. And then I dropped two or three other games that the other guys picked right, and I would just fall right back. I was always within striking distance, but just out of arm's length from everybody. I'm going to definitely have to do a lot better next year, represent for us. Are there any picks that you regret making?
Oh, there's a few. That first week, like I said, was brutal to me. For some reason, my dumb brain picked Oregon to beat Boise State. I should have known much better than that. And pretty much from there, it was anything I picked against the Big Ten, which I hate doing. I picked Arizona to beat Purdue. I picked Washington State to beat Michigan State. So anytime I picked against the Big Ten, it kind of came back to bite me. One of the Big Ten games I did pick was Michigan to beat South Carolina. And I really wish I would have gone with my heart, taking UCF over Auburn. But yeah, definitely some regrets. How about you?
Well, I kind of regret not picking the SEC right. I called that the SEC would do bad this bowl season, and outside of Georgia and Alabama, they basically did. South Carolina and Mississippi State were the only 2 teams to win. I had Mississippi State picked at first, but then I started second-guessing myself. They have an interim coach. Their quarterback was out, and it's Lamar Jackson's final game. And I should never trust Petrino and the birds with teeth. I should have went with my gut and stuck out with my Mississippi State pick. And I mean, I can't hate myself too much for picking that UK Northwestern game. I picked Kentucky to win.
Wrong
Northwestern, just such a hell of a game too. Kentucky came back. They went for 2 and they missed out on that. And so Northwestern won 24-23. But my biggest regret was I thought for sure I picked Michigan State to beat Washington State. I don't know if I fat thumbed it while I was making my picks, but I know you texted me and saying, I should have went with Michigan State. I didn't know that, was it Fulks was out?
Yeah, Luke Falk was not playing, and I found that out about 2 minutes after the game locked.
And I remember I texted you back. I said, yeah, I knew earlier today they said that he was walking around in an arm cast. And I'm glad I picked Michigan State. And then I went back to double check, and the game was already going on. I said I picked Washington State. And I was so mad at myself. So those 3 games right there, I think, could have helped me stay in the mix. But also, the other thing that hurt me most was I got the Final Four completely wrong. I picked Clemson, Oklahoma to win. And obviously, like I said, Georgia and Alabama got those out, as we see now. But I did pick Alabama to win it all after that, once that game went in. So,
yeah, on the show
for picking Alabama.
There you go. On the show, I picked Oklahoma and Clemson, and then I went into my Bowl Mania and I picked Georgia and Alabama to win that. So I made up a little ground there, but not enough. That first week just set me back way too much.
We'll have to do better when the March Madness comes up, and we'll do a March Madness bracket pick'em type thing. That'll be exciting to do. Hopefully get more people to join in.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Get people involved on Twitter, talk a little trash. Same as we did with this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But football season still is kind of lingering on. Football always has a way of lingering on for about a week or two once the season's over. And one of the topics coming out of the national championship game, we already talked about it a little bit during the game, was Hurts getting benched. Do you see any chance Hurts can go into the spring and compete out for the starting spot again, or is this Tua's spot?
I think it is Tua's spot. And Hurts played a great role after the game as being the good teammate and all that. There's no way he's sitting as a backup. So I took the liberty to prepare a power ranking here of where I think are good fits for Jalen Hurts to transfer. Because I think a transfer is inevitable. I got a top 3 here. At number 3, Michigan. And I would have had them at number 1 until they got Shea Patterson from Ole Miss. He's the former number 1 overall recruit, a 5-star quarterback. It didn't really work out for him at Ole Miss, but it looks like after he sits out a year, Jim Harbaugh will have him going there. Michigan's been plagued by bad quarterback play for forever, since Tom Brady, probably. I think Jalen Hurts would be a good fit in the Big Ten. But I think a better fit. Go ahead,
is Shea Patterson? I think he's available to play next year because Ole Miss got the sanctions. And usually when that happens with the sanctions and they transfer because of the sanctions,
you're allowed out.
I think the NCAA gives you a waiver of having to sit out. I could be wrong, but
we'll do some further research.
Right. I know Hurts will definitely have to sit out if he transfers, though.
Right. I think the number 2 in my power ranking. Number 2 is Florida Atlantic. What better way to stick it to Saban than to hop on that Lane train? Florida Atlantic, in all these like way too early polls and all that, is entering next season ranked already. Lane Kiffin, they rolled in their bowl game. This team is on the right track. Jalen Hurts could join Nick Saban's number 1 enemy down in Boca.
I can't hate on that pick. The only thing I don't see Hurts doing is going from such a big name program to such a tiny one in FAU. UCF had a lot of trouble legitimizing themselves as a national powerhouse or even a top 12 team. FAU, unless the media and everybody else just falls so in love with Lane Kiffin and gives just because it's Lane Kiffin, but when you look at Conference USA and everything else, that is just piss poor, bottom of the barrel of the FBS, and I can't see anybody giving FAU any sort of respect. The best he's going to get is just a ton of stats, and I don't even know what bowl game associations they have. I don't even know what bowl game they played in this year against University of North Texas. Where was that at? That was the Boca Raton Bowl, right?
Probably right in their own backyard. I honestly have no idea.
But yeah, obviously coach-wise and everything, it would be a perfect fit. But you also have to wonder if you're Hurts, does Lane Kiffin stay? I have to sit out a year. Lane Kiffin could be gone in year 3.
Yeah, I don't know the terms with his buyout with that 10-year deal he signed. I don't know.
It's probably like a hot pocket and, I don't know, maybe some Pokemon cards. I can't imagine that FAU has this ginormous buyout that no school can afford.
Fair enough. So that leaves
number 1.
To my number 1 team for where Jalen Hurts should transfer. And of course, that is the University of Illinois.
Yes.
Hurts' biggest weakness is throwing the ball. Lovie Smith does not know that the forward pass is now legal. So having him run some sort of option offense there in Illinois, in the Big Ten in those bad weather games, I think Jalen Hurts definitely has what it takes to succeed in the Big Ten, especially if he doesn't have to throw the ball. And my personal promise to Jalen Hurts is that if he comes to Illinois, I promise that he will never get pulled at halftime of a national championship game.
That is true. Can't be pulled from a national championship game if you don't go to a national championship game.
That's right. You got like the meme guy like touching the side of his head there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And he could be the next big thing at Illinois since Juice Williams was running around with the football.
Yeah, but it honestly does make sense. Guys like to play for Lovie Smith. He knows what it takes to play at the next level. He doesn't know how to coach at the college level, but I say turn him loose. he's never going to get pulled. He'll play right away. So
I can dig that. I think two places where he would fit, but it's not going to be allowed since the NCAA allows schools to dictate where you go when you transfer because there's no freedom for the student athlete. Two SEC schools that he would fit perfectly in. One would be Auburn. He would look really good in Gus Malzahn's offense, and it would make for one hell of a storyline to see Hurts come out in the Iron Bowl in 2019, face off against Tua, and battle it out to see who's the better quarterback. And I honestly think Hurts would be a better fit for Gus Malzahn's offense anyways. I was really surprised when Hurts went to Alabama and Alabama had a scrambling quarterback. They're not known for having that type of player. And then the other place that I think would be great, and I'm going to sound like a homer just like you did, but it's a perfect fit for Dan Mullen and his offense at Florida Gators. And my promise to Hurts is that, hey, Dan Mullen has put quarterbacks into the NFL through various levels of success, whereas Nick Saban has zero record of putting in any quarterback of value into the NFL. So come on over. It would be better for you to go to Florida. But again, like I said, I don't see Alabama allowing Hurts to transfer to Auburn, Florida, or any other SEC school for that matter.
Yeah, it's usually something there that they can't go somewhere in conference. I think the best fit for him would be up at Ohio State, but they already have a quarterback that they like going forwards. But I think schematically and personnel-wise, that would be the best fit.
Hey, he could go to Northwestern. He can go to Arizona. Yeah, I said it. Arizona with who's the new coach?
Arizona just hired Kevin Sumlin, and I think it's a good hire. Definitely will bring some stability after this whole Rich Rod fiasco. But this did not.
What's going on with that?
Yeah, so Rich Rod is the latest person in the whole sexual harassment thing, and from the stories, he sounds like a real dirtbag. Although the one that makes me laugh is how he had his wife and his girlfriend on the sideline of the same game. So that's a little bit of a baller move, but the rest of it was horrible stuff he's accused of. And then they were saying Navy coach, and I'm going to butcher his name, Ken Niumatalolo.
Your guess is as good as mine, man.
Yeah. So he was rumored to be the favorite, and they said the offer was in place and everything. And this is where it kind of got real crazy. Arizona quarterback Khalil Tate, who was a Heisman contender at one point in this season, and he probably will be mentioned next season among the Heisman favorites. He sent out a tweet, since deleted, but it's Twitter, so it's always out there, that he didn't go to Arizona so he could run the triple option. So he did not see him aboard the Niumatalolo train. So he backed out, and now Sumlin is in, who I think is going to be a great match with not only Arizona, but with Khalil Tate. He's kind of known for maximizing what he can get out of these mobile quarterbacks like Manziel, and he even got some success out of Kenny football, which is not the easiest thing to do.
I think this is a great move by Arizona, and it's kind of weird. I feel like my brain's being read sometimes, or that my text messages are being read, or something. But I was honestly thinking earlier in the week, I was surprised Kevin Sumlin didn't get a job, and one of the early rumors was that UCF was interested in Sumlin, but Sumlin was waiting out, I think, the Oregon job. And so UCF moved on. Of course, none of that was confirmed. It was just all rumors. But I felt like Kevin Sumlin overplayed his hand by turning down UCF, which I thought would have been a perfect spot for him, and waiting on an Oregon job that never came calling. And then he kind of got left out in the wind. Then, as you just said, Arizona fires Rich Rodriguez and picks up Kevin Sumlin. And it's going to make for an exciting Pac-12 South. You're going to have Chip Kelly down at UCLA. You still have, is it Helton? Todd Helton? Clay Helton, sorry.
Yeah,
so bad with names. Clay Helton out at USC. And now you have Kevin Sumlin down at Arizona. And who can forget the old coach himself, Herm Edwards, at Arizona State.
I think Herm Edwards himself probably forgot that he's coaching Arizona State.
He probably has. I'm pretty sure I've seen him on ESPN a few times since he's been hired.
He just sent out his first tweet ever the other day. I think someone in their department told him, to recruit 17-year-old kids, you got to get on the Twitter.
You got to get on the Twitter machine if you want to recruit kids.
Yeah.
And Kevin Sumlin's offense is going to light up the scoreboard against Pac-12 defenses.
Yeah, in a conference that doesn't play any defense, man.
Yeah. So the Pac-12 South is going to make for some interesting football. It might give us a reason to stay up for Pac-12 After Dark now.
Yeah, I like it. If you're going to promise me like 48 to 42 games, I'm staying up past midnight to watch them for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Now, of course, after every single national championship game, ESPN likes to do their top 5. Like, as soon as the gun sounds for the final whistle blows or whatever, ESPN is right there, ready to give you their top 5 for 2018. We're going to do you one better. We're going to give a way too early top 5 for 2019. What do you got for me for 2019?
Right. So I personally think they shouldn't do any top 25 polls until like halfway through conference play. So that being said, here's our 2019 way too early top 5. At number 5, I have Clemson.
Can't
Clemson,
go wrong there.
Yeah, they've got, another top 10 recruiting class coming in for 2018. They got quarterback Trevor Lawrence, I think was the number 1 recruit overall, not just the number 1 quarterback. So he'll be a sophomore going in the 2019 season. As much as I hate Dabo the person, he is a good football coach. So I think with as much talent as they have and quality coaching, I think Clemson sits pretty comfortably at number 5.
Yeah, I can't hate on that pick. I'm going to have Clemson a little bit higher than that. So at number 5, I'm going homer pick. I'm going the Florida Gators. Second year in Dan Mullen. Yeah, second year in Dan Mullen regime. He's going to have Emory Jones in his second year. I think the defense is going to come around. The offense is going to come around. And you're going to see big things from Dan Mullen, 2019, top 5.
I like it. I was going to put Illinois and Jalen Hurts in my number 5 spot, but I couldn't do it. Not until he officially announces that he'll play for the Illini.
I can respect you changing your top 5 if Jalen Hurts announces he transfers to Illinois.
Right, then they'll go 1 and everyone else will just get bumped 1. Number 4, Alabama. It's the same thing every year, right? Nick Saban's going to have an incredible group of 4 and 5 stars. I saw something today where like 86% of Alabama's roster is 4 or 5 star recruits. And again, you combo, just like we said with Clemson, you combo that with excellent coaching. You're going to have a team that's at or near the top. I like Alabama a lot. There's just a few teams that are building just a little bit more momentum than them at the time. So I have Alabama at number 4.
Alabama number 4. I can't hate on that. I'll have number 4, Oklahoma. It's going to be interesting to see how this new coach does now that all of Stoops' players is going to go. But I really like the way he handled the season. He went up against Urban Meyer at the Horseshoe, didn't flinch. He went up against Kirby Smart, who obviously has way more coaching experience, and came down to the wire. I think he learns from his coaching mistakes at the end of that game, builds off of it, and continues on. I think Oklahoma is a mainstay for a little while now. So I got Oklahoma at number 4.
I like it. I consider them. I just didn't know enough about them, who's coming behind Baker Mayfield. So a lot of these teams that I ranked are based on what young quarterbacks will still be there and the recruiting class is coming in. So as long as Oklahoma finds an answer at quarterback, I think they have the athletes to compete in the Big 12 every year.
Sounds good.
Number 3, I have out of the Big 10, the Penn State Nittany Lions. And a lot of this, again, comes down to coaching. I think James Franklin is an incredible coach. I also think that Penn State may have been the Big Ten's best team this year. They have 2018's number 4 recruiting class coming in. Trace McSorley will have graduated, so their big question mark is going to be finding their quarterback to move forward. And they have some recruits, but we just haven't seen them on the field yet. So I have Penn State at number 3.
I'm going to go Big Ten with number 3 as well, but I'm going to go out of left field once again, and I'm pulling out the Michigan Wolverines. I think with Shea Patterson finally at quarterback, I think Jim Harbaugh finally gets it right. He's been just a couple of players here or there away. The defense has been solid throughout his first 3 seasons. It's the offense that needs to come around, and once he gets his quarterback set, we've seen what Jim Harbaugh can do once he has the players he needs. And it's a really good football team when he has that. So, number 3, 2019, Michigan Wolverines.
I like it. Michigan, everyone says they had a bad year this year. They lost a ton of talent, and they're an extremely young team. So I wouldn't be surprised next year if they hover around the top 10 most of the year, and it wouldn't be surprising at all if they make the leap to number 3 in 2019. Number 2.
So yeah, go ahead.
I have from the Southeastern Conference, Georgia. I am all in on Jake Fromm. He didn't have the greatest stats in that championship game, but he had the look. There's no fear in his eyes, a true freshman. They have a monster recruiting class, the number 1 recruiting class for 2018. They have 6 5-star players. And unless Mullen turns Florida around quickly, I don't think the SEC East is all that difficult of a division. So I think everything's going to run through Georgia in the East for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and even if Florida does get turned around, you can have Florida at 5 and Georgia at 2, and that's where I got Georgia at as well. They have the number 1 recruiting class. They're coming off of a hot start in his second year. I think they're well above where everybody thought they would go. And let's see, number 2, Georgia. I agree with that.
All right. Number 1, I have, again out of the Big Ten, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And Ohio State has the number 2 recruiting class 2018, a ton of 5-stars who are mostly focused on the offensive and defensive line. I talked earlier about Dwayne Haskins, who's going to be their quarterback. He's a sophomore right now, so he'll be a senior in 2019. He is the real deal. He came in relief when Barrett got hurt, and he was slinging the ball all over the field. The offense looked totally different. They were actually going vertical, throwing outside the numbers. Urban Meyer always has a top 5 recruiting class. He coaches well. And I think with the wealth of talent, and at that point a senior quarterback, I think Ohio State's going to be the team to beat in 2019.
And you know what? I had Georgia number 2, and since this really doesn't matter because unless somebody goes back and listens to the show 2 years from now, nobody's going to know we got these wrong. So I'm going to throw Georgia out. I'm going to put Ohio State. I was sitting there thinking I wanted Ohio State in, but I didn't know where to put them, and I just felt like it was too obvious of a pick. But I'm going to throw them in there at number 2. I agree with you, Ohio State, and I'm going to stick to my number 1 and continue with the ridiculousness of picking a top 5 way too early. I'm going to go Miami here. I think Mark
I had
Richt,
them 5 and I pulled them out.
You pulled him out? Well,
I took him out.
You took him out? I'm putting him in. Number 1, Miami talent with Mark Richt. I know Mark Richt has this long-standing thing about him where he just somewhere down the line he always chokes. But I feel like if he recruits Miami well, which he has been doing, I think the athleticism and the Miami talent is good enough to overcome what shortcomings Mark Richt might have as a coach, which honestly aren't many. The guy is a really good coach. So number 1, 2019, the Miami Hurricanes. 20 years from now, they'll make the U Part 3 on 30 for 30, and it'll be good times.
I like it. The ACC Coastal is very winnable, so Miami has a good chance to pile up a ton of wins.
Yeah, I wanted to put Clemson in there as well. I just didn't want to make it such like an easy, let me look at whatever the top 5 is right now and pick that. So
yeah.
I kind of wanted to see the coaching world, or sorry, not the coaching world, but the college football world changes and cycles in and out. Clemson and Alabama have been the mainstays. And I feel like for now, Alabama will be the continuing mainstay. I like Tua. Tua will be in his 3rd year from now. Whereas I don't know where Clemson will be at quarterback or wide receiver or any of that other stuff. So that's why I kind of pushed them out of the top 5.
Right.
And stuck with that. So with that said, let's go over the preseason AP Top 25. We're going to do a weekly series on this. We're going to do 5 teams at a time. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. And just go over how the AP Top 25 did. See if they were right on, see if they were way off, and mock them as we go. Because, like you said, preseason rankings shouldn't exist. It should not come out until halfway through the conference schedule. So what do we got here at 21 through 25? At number 25 in the preseason rankings, to show you how big of a joke preseason rankings are, Tennessee comes in at number 25. And I could not laugh any harder when I sent that text message over to you today.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And I do hate the preseason polls because they determined so much, which is just asinine. If UCF came into this season ranked at like 13, they're in the playoff.
Oh, of course.
But since they started the year unranked, which is why I said you can't rank anyone until halfway through conference play, but they do, and everyone talks about it. In Tennessee, my God, at 25. So they finished 4-8, and that's 0-8 in conference play.
Yep.
The biggest story for Tennessee the first half of the year is when was Butch Jones going to get fired? Their season was highlighted by blowout losses to Georgia, Bama, Mizzou, and that powerhouse known as Vanderbilt. Key wins. They had a nice 4-point home win over UMass.
Yeah, you can't go wrong when you beat UMass.
Yeah, are they the
Don't
Minutemen?
forget, no. And they did have that big, entertaining game against Georgia Tech week 1. And that's when we were introduced, or at least I was introduced. I don't know if they did this last year, but the turnover trash can, what a joke that was. Basically symbolized how much garbage Tennessee football had become at that point. And I don't want anybody to feel like we're hating on Tennessee too much, but you can't deny how much trash Tennessee's been over the years. And to put them at number 25 preseason, it had to be based on name alone and stupid recruiting rankings, because nothing in the last 10 years tells you that Tennessee needs to be a preseason number 25.
Not at all, but we don't want to just be hating on Tennessee. There is a small reason for optimism. Apart from the fact that it can't get any worse, that's always a reason for optimism. There's nothing worse than what happened this year. But new coach Jeremy Pruitt coming in, maybe he can bring a little bit of that Bama-like mentality to the program. And there's nowhere to go but up. So for them, Tennessee ranked at 25. As far as a hit or miss, to me, this is a Jamarcus Russell pass. It's a miss that's not even close.
It's a miss that's not even close. I like that Jamarcus Russell pass. Very good. And it was a Jamarcus Russell number 1 overall pick type miss as well.
Yeah.
Now coming in at number 24, I'll give it a dead on. Number 24, Washington State. They finished the season 9-4, 7-0 at home, 2-3 away. Lost to Michigan State really bad, but overall, I'd say Washington State deserved to be in the top 25, and they deserve to be at the bottom of the top 25. So number 24, I like it. That was a good call by the AP poll.
It was. And early in the year, we were talking about Washington State being a possible playoff contender. We were saying the winner of that Apple Cup was probably going to the playoff because both Washington and Washington State looked like they might be able to run the table until that game. They had big wins. They beat number 5 USC. They beat number 21 Stanford. But all of their losses were blowouts. They got blown out by Cal, Arizona, and Washington, and they got blown out by Michigan State in the Holiday Bowl. So for me, the hit or miss, I put this one down as a Tim Tebow knuckleball. It was ugly, but very effective because they climbed as high as like a top 5 team, and they finished as the first team outside the top 25. So they were right. They shouldn't have been. It felt like Washington State was better than that all year, but those ugly blowout losses put them right back where the AP had them at the beginning of the year.
Yep. And then rolling in, I think, again, this was based solely on name only. That is the Texas Longhorns. I don't understand why they came in at number 23. They had a brand new coach, just like Tennessee. They haven't had anything that signals that they should be a top 25 team coming into any season. And I feel like with Tennessee and Texas, if you think they're going to be good, what does it hurt to wait and see? Just if Texas is going to go undefeated, then unlike UCF, they'll be jumped up they'll make the playoffs. They don't need any preseason help for you to put them in the top 25 right away when you really don't know what they're going to do. And they basically played the way I thought they would have played out. They had some good wins. They had some bad losses. Overall, they finished 7-6. They had a big blowout win against a mediocre SEC team in Missouri. 5-4 in conference play isn't bad. The future's bright. I have a feeling that now next season they're probably going to come in around 13 or 14 based off of how they did last year. But I think this is a big miss. With a 7-6 team, yeah, you can't put them at number 23 preseason rank.
Yeah, there is reason for optimism in Austin. They're led this year by their true freshman quarterback, Sam Ehlinger. And he played like a freshman a lot of the time. I remember we were texting a lot during the game they played Oklahoma State, and he led them to a comeback, and then he threw the late pick. I think it was in overtime, just directly to the defender. So they lost heartbreakers to Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in consecutive weeks. They did beat a pretty good West Virginia team, an Iowa State team that was in and out of the rankings. But yeah, their ranking, the preseason ranking, was probably based on the recruiting class. They're always in the top 10. And they are again next year. I think they have, the 6 top DBs in the country are all committed to the Texas. So reason for hope there, but number 23, for me, as far as hit or miss, that was the Bama kicker lining up a 36-yarder. That was a miss.
Complete shank.
Yeah.
Number 22 comes from the Big 12 as well. And I get why they had reason for optimism with West Virginia. You have a Gator legend out there. God, why can't I think of his name right now?
Will Grier.
So bad with names. Will Grier. There we go. Fear the Grier. And had it not been for some injuries and maybe some kind of just getting a feel for the game again since he sat out a year, West Virginia looked like a solid team, but finished just as bad as Texas did, 7-6 with a 3-game losing streak to finish off the season.
Yeah, so that they were 7-3, and then Grier got hurt in that Texas game. So they lost to Texas, and then they lost their next 2, which included their bowl game. They had some decent wins. Again, they're another team that beat Iowa State. They beat Texas Tech. Will Grier is coming back, so that's something to look forward to next year in Morgantown. For the hit or miss, I give this one an incomplete. Like I said, 7-3, and then Grier goes down. So I think if he had continued playing, I think it would have been a pretty accurate rating, right around 22. They probably win at least one of those games, probably 2 of them.
And then we have Virginia Tech to finish off this top 5 or series of 5 from the AP. They're ranked at number 21, finished the season 9-4, lost their bowl game, but were 5-3 in the ACC. And you feel like they were just too new with Fuente. I think this is his second year coaching the team, still getting that system in. He's still bringing in his players. It's really hard to get away from Beamer ball. Beamer ball is a very conservative type coaching style and players, and Fuente's more of that spread them out, let's be aggressive, let's run the hurry up. So your second year in, trying to pull away from Beamer ball is tough. But overall, 9-4, that sounds like a ranked 21 team to me.
Yeah, they Virginia Tech had an all right season. They didn't have any really bad losses. Their losses were Clemson, on the road at Miami, at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was the only unranked team to beat them, but we've talked at length about Georgia Tech. Now they can beat just about anybody. And then they lost their bowl game to Oklahoma State. Some quality wins over Virginia and West Virginia, so they owned the Virginias, it seems. To me, Virginia Tech is always a team. They seem to be ranked 21st, like always. Every year, they're always right around there. They finished this year ranked 24th. So for me, as far as a hit or miss, this is a Sam Bradford, 79% completion percentage. This is a hit.
Yeah, definitely. It was a very good, solid. I would even call it a double. They finished 24th, which is lower than where they started. But if you rank them 21, right? Because they lost their bowl game. But if you rank them 21, I wouldn't be mad or argue with you about it.
No, I bet they come out next year.
Yep. Overall, out of those 5, they were 1-for-4. Only Virginia Tech was the only team out of those 5 to finish in the AP top 25. And so very bad grade for the AP coming in that bottom 25. So the 21 through 25 in the final AP poll was number 21, South Florida, 22, Boise State, 23, NC State, 24, Virginia Tech, which we just mentioned, and rounding it off, 25 was Memphis.
Yeah, so they're close on Washington State. Washington State was the first team out, so they would be 26 if it went any further down. So they're pretty accurate on that. But yeah, only one of their bottom 5 actually made the rankings. And no big jumps out of there. Nobody played above their head from those bottom 5.
Yeah, the only team that, like we talked about earlier, was Washington State. I'm pretty sure they climbed up near the top 10, especially
they got
after
in the top
routed.
5.
Did they get in the top 5 when they routed USC?
I think they got there.
Okay, so it was definitely up really high, and then like you said, with those big blowout losses, they came plummeting down and everything. So, looking forward to continuing this grading and everything else. Anything else you want to bring up? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, did you want to give him your game ball, or do you want to just talk about it? Did you have another game ball to give out other than Keith Jackson?
I have another game ball. You can go ahead with Keith Jackson.
All right,
we lost a good one.
Yeah. Keith Jackson passed away sometime this weekend. I was in the Bahamas, so I'm really fuzzy on the details of, I think that was Friday, right?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head it was.
Okay. So Keith Jackson passes away, and this is a guy that has called so many great moments in college football. The USC Texas game, the big kick return for Michigan. I'm sure I'm missing out on hundreds more.
Yeah, just legendary calls. His final game was that Rose Bowl, Texas USC, possibly the greatest college football game I've ever seen. He just added so much with his commentary. Just one of the all-time greats. Definitely worthy of at least our game ball this week.
Yeah, definitely top college tailgaters game ball. Who's your other game ball going to go to?
I have one I've been sitting on for a little while, and this one goes to Ed Oliver, defensive tackle for Utah. Before their game, he played in the Hawaii Bowl. The day before the game, he stepped on a sea urchin, and he played the game with a spine from the sea urchin stuck in his foot, and he scored a fat guy touchdown. They handed it to him, and he scored a goal line touchdown. So Ed Oliver scored a fat guy touchdown with a sea urchin spine in his foot.
This is why I love sports, man. You can't make this stuff up.
You got a game ball?
Yeah, my game ball has to go to Nick Saban. I think, without a doubt, the greatest coach of all time. 6 national championships in an era where we are finally. He ties Bear Bryant, but I think he has one more than Bear Bryant, because one of Bear Bryant's national championships is one that he won in the regular season and then lost to Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. So, yeah, he gets to claim it, like UCF gets to claim their national title, but I'll give Nick Saban's all 6 titles to outweigh all of Bear Bryant's. I mean, you're in the restricted scholarship era where you can only give out 25 a year, 85 total on your team. They do finally have bowl matchups where it's not just, oh, you're in the Big Ten and the Pac-12, you play each other, and oh, you're in this conference and that conference, you play each other. Now we're starting to put together semi-wannabe playoff games and semi-wannabe 1 versus 2 with the BCS. So he's at least facing off against top talent and top teams in the nation to win these national titles. So definitely got to go to Nick Saban, doing the ballsy move, pulling his 25-2 quarterback for a 0-0 freshman quarterback. And you even mentioned it, he's left-handed. That's difficult on receivers. People don't realize the ball comes out differently from a left-handed quarterback than it does a right-handed quarterback. So,
big-time move for 49ers guys when Steve Young took over.
Oh, yeah. Big-time move by Nick Saban, and once again, the guy just continuously wins. It doesn't matter if offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, quarterbacks, wide receivers, linebackers. The guy is just a football factory machine. And Alabama, man, just enjoy this while you can. I know you guys have been. I know for you guys, you're hoping it's another 10 years to go. And as a Gator fan, I hope not, or I hope that Dan Mullen proves to be a respected adversary that takes him down from time to time. But for now, Nick Saban's the king of college football, and he's the greatest of all time in college football.
I like it. You're not going to get any argument from me. A little research there. Washington State climbed as high as number 8 this year.
There we go. So number 8, and then plummeted out of the top 25. So looked like a good pick for the AP top 25, and then fell out. But yeah, Nick Saban's the best, man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, go Gators.
Go Illini.
See ya.
Later.